Hello and welcome. It's Sean Carney, continuing with my music vlog, talking about the early years. And we started with a CD called A Fifth of Good Whiskey Blues. And I believe chronologically that was my CD debut, although I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the first one. We talked about that one on the previous vlog, and that was a track with Christine Cottrell. And we're going back to 1998 again today, and we're going to talk about Sean Carney and the Night Owlz Provisions. This CD was released on a label called Main Street Records, and that label was owned by my friend Kevin Anderson, who is also the executive producer of the CD, and the assistant executive producers were Pete and Millie Van Brussel. And they were all living up around Fredericksburg, Ohio at that time. And the little Main Street Records logo that you see here, I believe, is actually an illustration of downtown Fredericksburg, Ohio. Kevin could tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember that being the case. But there you see Main Street Records. There was also another group signed to the label called The Grown Men. They had a release called Dirty Town. There you see Frederickstown, not Fredericksburg. That was my mistake there. Frederickstown, Ohio. And the illustration there is downtown Frederickstown. And that is up, I believe, around the Mansfield area. So this CD was recorded mostly, I believe, in 97. We may have even started as early as 96. And there were two different main recording sessions and sort of two different groups of songs that were probably separated by, it took about a year to record the CD, and the songs were probably separated by about 6 months, but it was the same lineup. So the first thing that I want to mention is the lineup on A Fifth of Good Whiskey Blues, which was actually recorded in 95, was Sean Carney and the Night Owlz. But by the time we got into the studio to record this one in 97, it was a completely different lineup. And the band had expanded. So for this CD, the core lineup, of course, is myself on vocals and guitar, Keith Kobe on upright bass, strictly upright bass, Eddie Baird on tenor sax. Eddie and Keith were both students at The Ohio State University in the Jazz Studies department. A number of my musicians in those days, I would scout from the Jazz Studies department. John Popovich on keyboard, and Dave West on drums. And of course, I had played in Dave's bands over the years, and he was returning the favor and playing in my band. And this band really focused on West Coast jump blues. As I mentioned, Keith didn't even play electric bass, so we didn't really get into a whole lot of Chicago blues. Although I have to mention my friend Mark Hummel, because I had become friends with Mark in the early 90s, mid 90s. And Mark always encouraged me and even told me if I moved to California, he'd consider hiring me in his band. But he told me that I needed to get into more of the string benders like Otis Rush and people like that, because I wasn't really into that style. I was young, I was in my mid-20s, and there was, I think, more interest in that style of music in the 90s than there is now. I can't really explain why, because I guess the swing craze was probably starting. It was probably brewing around this time that we recorded this CD. But there just seemed to be more interest in the style of music. So Kevin approached me about releasing a CD on his label, and it was something that I had never done before, so I decided that, yeah, we wanted to get a CD out there. So we recorded this CD at the Rubber Room, which was Eric Bloom's studio, which was where Ray Fuller and the Blues Rockers were recording their CDs. And in fact, Ray Fuller produced about half the songs on a CD. And I asked Ray to do that, and I remember him telling me, well, I've never really produced a CD before other than my own. I'm not quite sure what you expect of me. And I said, well, you know, give us some feedback and help us out if we get stuck. And of course, we also asked Ray to contribute a track, some slide guitar, which was something that I didn't do and still don't do. But we thought we wanted to kind of get into some Chicago blues on the CD, at least one song. So Ray gave us that nudge in that right direction to expand our sound a little bit, expand our repertoire a bit. We chose a lot of covers because I had not started writing any songs. I had a couple of original songs, but they weren't good enough to put on a CD. That's Better For Me is T-Bone Walker, It's My Life Baby, Bobby Blue Bland, Love Is Just a Gamble, T-Bone Walker, I Believe I'll Give It Up is Lowell Fulson. I'll Die Trying is J.B. Lenoir, so we were going in a little bit different direction there. Sweet Woman from Maine is Robert Lockwood. I haven't seen too many people cover that one. The Push, Hank Marr, even delving into some Columbus blues and some King Records material even way back then. True Love Untold is the one original song on the CD, written by Christine Cottrell. Matchbox is Ike Turner. Ain't That Dandy is Clarence Gatemouth Brown. I'm Worried is Elmore James. You Know Yeah is Pee Wee Creighton. And Oh Baby was a song by Johnny Guitar Watson. So you can see that we were delving into a lot of California blues, a lot of West Coast blues, some Texas blues. That's really where my interests were at this point in time. So I should talk about the guests that we have on the CD. We had Christine Cottrell, Willie Pooch, Ray Fuller, James Ibold, Gene Walker, and Tommy Thomas. That's a lot of guests. Many of those were instrumentalists, and some of these people, like Gene Walker, Willie Pooch, Christine, are not around anymore. This was a track Christine wrote herself. We had kind of looked at some different tunes, and she wanted to write something new for the CD, so she did, and it turned out pretty well. And I believe Gene is also on that track. The Willie Pooch track turned out, I think, really strong. We had Willie Pooch on a song called "It's My Life, Baby," which is a Bobby Bland song, and Willie was familiar with the tune, and he really liked it. And it was a pretty easy, quick and easy recording session. Again, we asked Ray Fuller to sit in on the Elmore James song and provide the Elmore James guitar, and that was probably the roughest vocal for me at the time, as far as really digging in and getting some grit on my voice. I don't think I was much of a singer at this time. I was developing, and you know, I like to embellish my band with different front people. Willie Pooch fronted my band a lot. I remember one particular Comfest, which was probably right before this CD came out, pretty much with this lineup and Willie, and it was just one of a magical gig. I wish I had that recorded somewhere. There was a lot of magic on this CD, I think, in terms of some really good guests who really brought the energy. And we also had Gene on the Willie Pooch track, and we had Tommy Thomas on the Robert Lockwood track, True Love Untold. James Ibold was known for playing guitar through a Leslie type speaker, and so we decided to bring him in on the instrumental Hank Marr track, which was called The Push. And that was one of those King Records tracks that Hank Marr recorded with Freddie King on guitar. So I thought that would be an interesting tune to revisit, and certainly wanted to tip the hat towards Hank Marr, who was still, you know, he was still around at this time. This was an exciting period of time for me. There you see me on the back cover. I was a big boy. That's a photo by J.T. Latozo. I remember going out to his place and shooting some pictures with him. The cover of the CD is Brian Boru's, which is where my band held court for about 18 years. It was on North High Street, Russell and High, and they had a sign that said Provisions on the front of the bar, and we couldn't think of a title for the CD, and Provisions was what we came up with based on that sign and that photo that we had chosen to be the cover photo. Interesting choice for a cover photo, I think. I might have done something a little bit different and put the band on the cover if I had done this at a different point in time, but this was our first CD, and you know, we were learning. There was a lot of learning done on this CD. As I look through the liner notes, I'm sort of reminded of a couple of festivals that we performed at. I remember this band performed at the Limaland Festival, which was Pickles' event. We also performed at the Columbus Arts Festival. Music in the Air concerts were still going at that time. Let's see. I do mention Mark Hummel in the liner notes. I mentioned Michelle Wilson, who we were also backing up around this time. Big Joe Duskin. I really wanted to get Big Joe on this CD. I really just met Big Joe around this time, and with him being in Cincinnati, it just didn't work out to get him into the studio. And I always wanted to record a CD with Joe, and I never got to. But I do have some tracks that I would like to release with Joe that I think are pretty strong. I'd like to get out there. Another artist that we had just met when we were recording this CD was Teeny Tucker, and I feel remiss that we didn't include Teeny on the CD. It was a timing issue where, like I said, I had just met her, and we were already well into recording the CD. But I do remember Teeny was at the CD release party, which we had at Brian Barew's, and it was quite a night. I remember Gene Walker was there with his whole band. I had my band there. Willie Pooch was there. I don't think Christine made it. I think she was probably one of the few artists who didn't make it. Tommy was there. I believe Ray Fuller was there. Willie Pooch was there. I remember Fred Reichert showed up and parked his motorcycle right out front. Fred Reichert was there. That place was so packed you couldn't get in. And the music was continuous. It was one of those 4-hour gigs at Brian Barew's. And with Gene's band there and all the guests there, the music was absolutely continuous with no breaks. And it was just an absolutely magical night. When I mentioned there was magic on this CD, it really came out that night at the CD release party. And it was one of those things where I didn't even think to have a photographer there to cover the evening, because it certainly would have been one to capture, at least in photo, if not some video. But unfortunately, people didn't have their phones back in those days, and it's one of those things that if you missed it, you missed it. But what a night it was. And this CD really opened a lot of doors for me. I finally had something to put into people's hands, and it became a tool that we could use to book gigs and festivals and things like that. And I was in my mid-20s. I was living in the short north, I guess, by the time this CD came out. I had my own apartment at First and Park in the short north, and was just a couple blocks away from my steady gig at Brian Barew's. And I was working at Schottenstein's during the day in the IT operation over there. I was a busy young man, and finally had a CD in my hands. We repackaged this CD in 2007 as Provisions, A Second Helping, and Kevin Anderson worked with me on this, again releasing it on his label, Main Street Records. So we remastered the original CD, and A Second Helping was 3 tracks, 3 additional tracks with the same lineup, and it was I Got News, It's Audacious, and Good Rockin' Tonight. We had recorded those tracks over at Mills James Productions. I live in Hilliard now, and Mills James is less than a mile from my house. our piano player, John Popovich, was working at Mills James as a video editor, and we had access to their recording studio, and I think we recorded I know that we recorded a track for a Christmas CD that Mills James released, and I think we did 2 tracks, in fact, for that CD, and I believe we took advantage of that time and recorded these extra tunes over there while we were in the studio. So we decided to include them on Provisions, a Second Helping. This was released in 2007. We figured it was a good time to release the CD. There's a really great picture of Christine Cottrell, Willie Pooch, and myself. That's from the King Arts Complex, from a benefit concert that we did there. And I don't remember what the song was, but it wasn't very often that we got the 2 of them on stage together. But it was always exciting when we did. There was a lot of joking going on between the 2 of them. I want to mention that the artwork for this CD was done by my good friend Chuck Agan, who passed away sadly this year. Chuck did a lot of my graphic design work for me, including this CD. And here we see, designed by C.S. Agan. Chuck and I were really best of friends. We met at DeSales as freshmen there. And also should mention this CD was the original CD was engineered by Eric Bloom, and the extra 3 tracks we recorded at Mills James were engineered by Dave Egan. And I'm not sure that Dave is even with us at this point. But a whole lot of history here. We really wanted to get a snapshot of the Columbus blues scene back in 1998 with this CD, and include a lot of the people that we were backing up in different configurations of this band, and I think we did that. My bass player Keith moved to New York City probably, I think, in '98, the year that we released this CD, and that was another big lineup change for the band. So, this lineup maybe lasted about 2-3 years, which is pretty good, really, when you think about it. Lineups generally don't last for more than about a year, in my experience, and we had a really good lineup of different players who pushed each other, I think, and to be better. And I was certainly trying to be better, and I believed in surrounding myself with people who were better than me. I wanted to be the worst guy in the band, really, because I felt like I had a long way to go. Even as a band leader, I felt like I had a long way to go. I want to mention another guy who was a big influence on me in this time and was still around when this CD came out, and that was old boss H. Raleigh Randolph, the father of drummer Raleigh Randolph. And he was a band leader, and he took me under his wing in a big way as a budding band leader. And his acceptance of me was really, really important. And then, Boss was in his 80s when I met him, and he was working with an organization called the 589, which was the last black musicians union. That was the local 589, and Boss had been the president of that organization, and they revived it as a nonprofit educational endeavor, and this band played at a number of benefits that Old Boss organized, and one day he was gone. He had an aneurysm, and Boss sadly was gone. But I feel really lucky that I got to know him, and within about a year of recording this CD, Christine was also gone. She died in '99. So a lot of big changes came right after this CD. So it was a cool snapshot of what was, and sadly what changed. And I got a lot of lessons about change when Christine passed away, when Old Boss passed away, and I'm really glad that I have this music to remember that period in time and to remember those people. So if you've hung in there with me till the end, I really appreciate it. We will continue with this vlog series, and I'll continue to talk about some CDs. It seems like a good point for conversation. Thanks for watching, folks. I really appreciate it.